Hi, it's Michael Gora from megacommand.com. This video is about marketing, just like all the other videos. Awesome. Why are we going to talk about marketing? We're going to talk about marketing strategy. A big problem that I see recurring over and over when I talk to different marketers and advertisers and people on the internet is that they all know how to set up an advertisement. They know how an advertisement works, kinda. But the problem is that it's just not working. So how do you get an advertisement to actually work for you? And how do you get an advertisement to actually produce results for you? Maybe you have advertising that works for you and is getting leads or conversions for you, but you don't really understand the mindsets and the theory behind it of why it's working. So this video is going to try to address some of those mindsets and theories that you need to understand to be a good advertising, strategist, whether you're a marketing manager, whether you're an entrepreneur or CEO or whatever you do. If you have any marketing function that you do, you should understand the proper strategy and theoretical concepts that are required to actually run a successful marketing campaign and be able to compete, in marketplace with different actors. Okay, so one of the big concepts that really needs to be understood for you to be a successful marketer or business person in general is the center of gravity theory. During the Enlightenment, during the 18th century, there were these enlightened philosophers, and they hung out in like coffee shops. They were much cooler than the people that hang out at coffee shops today, let me tell you that. And they were revolutionaries. They changed the whole world. They created the United States. They created other countries in Europe and stuff like that. They did all these crazy things. One of these enlightened people was actually a general. His name was Carl von Clausewitz, and he wrote the defining text on war. And why is this book important? Who cares? This book is important because it's used by the United States military. It's been used by the German military, the Polish military. Various different militaries in the world base all of their strategy on Carl von Clausewitz on war. Silicon Valley bases its concepts on the military. If you read some of my past articles on my website, you know that military strategy has been historically used in the tech industry itself as a model for entrepreneurship and growing businesses and how to gain share and strategy. I have a whole library of books. I can show you a whole different resources that I've discovered over the years that kind of really, explain all the different, military maxims and the military stuff that you can understand to really win an advertising war and run an advertising campaign. A few of them might be called like the Lancaster strategy. And there's a lot of great old school books that people that really understand advertising from when the media was first blowing up that you can read. One of the defining texts that I like reading is actually Carl von Clausewitz. And he wasn't really an advertiser and marketer. He was a military general. But his concepts apply to the marketing world better than any other book I've ever read in my entire life. So we're going to read a little excerpt here on something called the center of gravity. The center of gravity being the key to success and the key of understanding how the different forces and dynamics play with each other when you're in an auction or you're in a market where there's different advertisers and there's different spheres of gravity kind of pulling customers in different directions. And to kind of understand what I'm talking about here, I'm going to read out of the book because he explains it much, much deeper way because he understands it a lot better. And then we're going to explain exactly what that means in our modern sense today doing digital advertising. So this is from On War, from a chapter called Defense of a Theater of Operations. See, people never even think about defending their territory in advertising. Especially if you're the leader in an advertising arena, you have to defend your company and your brand. If you don't defend your brand is useless. And, if you're a company that's starting up, you also have to eventually occupy a segment and then defend that segment. Okay, so let's get started and see what Carl von Clausewitz has to say about this. The scale of a victory's sphere of influence depends, of course, on the scale of the victory. And that in turn depends on the size of the defeated force. For this reason, the blow from which the broadest and most favorable repercussions can be expected will be aimed against that area where the greatest concentration of enemy troops can be found. The larger the force with which the blow is struck, the surer its effect will be. This rather obvious sequence leads us to an analogy that will illustrate it more clearly. That is the nature and effect of a center of gravity. A center of gravity is always found where the mass is concentrated most densely. It presents the most effective target for a blow. Furthermore, the heaviest blow is that struck by the center of gravity. The same holds true in war. The fighting forces of each belligerent, whether a single state or an alliance of states, have a certain unity and therefore some cohesion. Where there is cohesion, the analogy of the center of gravity can be applied. Thus, these forces will possess certain center of gravity, which, by their movement and direction, govern the rest. And those centers of gravity will be found where the forces are most concentrated. But in war, as in the world of inanimate matter, the effect produced on the center of gravity is determined and limited by the cohesion of its parts. In either case, a blow may well be stronger than the resistance requires, and in that case, it may strike nothing but air, and so be a waste of energy. There is a decided difference between the cohesion of a single army led into battle under the personal command of a single general and that of an allied force extending over 250 or 500 miles, or even operating against different fronts. In the one, cohesion is at its strongest and unity at its closest. In the other, unity is remote, frequently found only in mutual political interests, and even then rather precarious and imperfect. Cohesion between the parts will usually be very loose and often completely fictitious. On the one hand, then, the force at which our blow is to be aimed requires that our strength be concentrated to the utmost. On the other, any excess is to be regarded as a decided disadvantage, since it involves a waste of energy, which in turn means of lack of strength elsewhere. It is therefore a major act of strategic judgment to distinguish the centers of gravity in the enemy's forces and to identify their spheres of effectiveness. One will constantly be called upon to estimate the effect that an advance or retreat by part of the forces on either side will have upon the rest. Far from believing we have discovered a new technique, we are merely providing a rationale for the actions of every general in history, which serves to explain their connection with the nature of the problem. All right, so he kind of carries on what else he talks about in the book. And then lastly, he says here, our position then is that a theater of war, be it large or small, and the forces stationed there, no matter what their size, represent a sort of unity in which a single center of gravity can be identified. This is the place where the decision should be reached. A victory at that point is in its fullest sense identical with the defense of the theater of operations. So what the hell are you talking about, Mike? This is too crazy. I'm just trying to do my internet marketing, Facebook ads, and get some clickbait and make some sales, okay? All right, this is some important stuff that I just mentioned to you here, okay? This is big business stuff. This is if you want to grow a huge $100 million, billion-dollar company, okay? This isn't, what you're talking about is more guerrilla warfare. It's so easy to find, little nuggets or little niches where you can have profit opportunities. But if you really want to saturate a segment, if you want to control, say, territory, or you want to control, say, even geographic territory for your business where you can make sales, or you want to control, theoretical territory in some sort of interest group on the internet, say you have, you're in a niche that's only internet-based and really doesn't have any geography associated with it, you still have to occupy some sort of segment, and you have to occupy some sort of territory. And you're talking about, like, what do I have to do? Do I have to buy a bunch of land? No, you have to occupy the segment in people's minds. You have to occupy an idea, a concept, a group of words, of phrases in a person's mind.